Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Barber from Bigfoot's Barber Shop. Yes, it is always great to see you back here in the Fox Den. This must mean we are getting ready for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Well, that was a little bit messy, but now I do feel ready and charged. So without further ado, it is time for Brian Barber and myself to take a walk into the darkness. My creatures of the night, yes, it is once again Midnight Lycanthropy time here on StarFox Radio, and I do appreciate everybody bearing with me as I had to rebrand myself to an extent, but no worries, everything is good. No legal issues, no copyright issues, full throttle ahead, and guess what? We have Brian Barber from Bigfoot's Barber Shop back in the house tonight. How are you doing, my dude?
I am doing good, my friend. How are you?
This is excellent. I'm very glad that some of the stuff you were dealing with on the side, health-wise, you're on the uprise. So this is good. And well, I'm excited. I was a little disappointed about having to rechurn out my stuff, but everything's ready to roll now, and it should be a lot more smooth sailing now. So that's about it. Just been trying to catch up with people and also redo content and get it out properly, and just really trying to spread some awareness. So
Well, the cool thing is, too, is a lot of people who haven't heard of you be getting that content for the first time. So, and everything is yours now. You don't have to worry about somebody taking it away.
yes, my friend, preach. And I do appreciate that very much. And that's what I tried to tell myself. And that's what others close to me told me, is that, like, hey, you're still a young channel. You're barely scraping 1,500 subs. The majority of your life expectancy of your channel in front of you has a ton of new people coming in that aren't going to have even seen any of this. So people that are loyal to you are going to understand what happened, and they're still going to stick with you because you're still going to churn out new stuff. But also, even though to some of the loyal people it might be an older episode, to new people they have no idea. So I do appreciate that.
Well, yeah, I go back and rewatch my favorite episodes from, different creators. So let's watch that one again.
Yes, and that's why I definitely appreciate you, because you are one of the ones that are totally super supportive. What have you been up to in general? Anything new your way in the Bigfoot world or the Dogman world? Anything been piquing your mind lately?
Bigfoot world, I just went over an encounter with a friend that she had down in the Smoky Mountains. Although after looking at the pictures, it's kind of hard to tell. I think it was Bigfoot, but Dogman could have been in there. But I'll talk to her some more this week and get more details. So that's where we're going with that. Other than that, I've been just trying to get my health back. so I can get back out in the woods and get some fresh stuff. Hopefully, you gotta have those cryptids cooperate in order to do this. So
Very interesting. So it sounds like you are also been diving into some things. And exactly, health comes first, my friend, because realistically, if you're not at the top of your health game, you probably really shouldn't be in any sort of predatory animal area, but sure as a dominant cryptid, because if you do need to boogie out of the area, you want to make sure those legs and joints are cranking, right?
yeah, exactly. You don't want to smell like blood in the pool for a shark.
Yes, yes. So tonight I was thinking potentially you being in the Michigan area, you are definitely going to have heard of the majority of the infamous and new age kind of Michigan Dogman type encounters. And I'm up in the Northeast, and as stated, I do my research, but I don't live in Michigan. So there has to have been some things that you've heard of that I have definitely not been introduced to. So I'd like to hand you the mic for a second and let you take this in the direction you'd like to roll, friend.
Well, the Dogman is one of those things that's up and coming, even though it's been around forever. Right now, it's to the point where Bigfoot was maybe 5 to 10 years ago before, Finding Bigfoot came out, and it was cool to talk about. Right now, Dogman's still trying to be okay to talk about. There's obviously Manistee National Forest. It's a real hot spot. You got, I believe it was Joe Barger down in that exact same area. We had my family's encounter in 1964. So it's been Dogman down there for quite a while. And now I'm starting to deep dive a little bit. And now you've got where Bigfoot and Sasquatch are starting to be seen together. You hear about some of the battles they have, like up in the UP of Michigan. There's a place called the Mystery Spot. And that's one of those, what's the words I'm looking for? Kind of illusion and energy is off up there. So, like, even though you're standing on a decline, you feel like you're standing flat, even though you look like you're standing almost at a 45-degree angle in certain places. They talk about vortex and portals there. And they also talk about how there's a couple 8 to 10 foot dogmen running around, and they seem to be having a turf war with the Bigfoot up there. There's supposedly a couple 15-footers that they go back and forth. So depending on the mood, I think they've learned to just kind of coexist. But if one steps too far over, it sounds like it'd be one heck of a King Kong versus, Scooby-Doo on steroids.
I mean, it's not humorous, the topic we're talking about, but that last reference was classic. And to be quite honest with you, I was watching some nature aspects earlier because I love to learn and just put things on in the background. And everyone knows a leopard is a dominant predator. Well, guess what? Leopards have issues with hyenas and lions all the time. So it would make sense, like you were stating, some sort of dominant predators clashing with each other is definitely not something that you really want to get into because, like I said, all those predators just named are apex, and we all know that they are capable of causing massive trauma to their prey, yet also they can cause trauma to each other. I mean, leopards go in and take out crocodiles and anacondas. They're not afraid of the water and they go up in trees. Same thing with like jaguars. They're badass, excuse my language. But the problem is, again, hyenas I've seen numerous times dispose of leopards, full grown healthy leopards, just whoop them. And vice versa. I've seen leopards go up and take out a baboon in the tree, but then I've seen 20 or 30 of the baboons afterwards not be very happy with what happened to their friend and just literally go beat the living Christmas trees out of that leopard with rocks and sticks, and to the point of they weren't going to even feed on it. They just wanted to maul it to teach it a lesson, and I would assume it no longer existed afterwards from the injuries caused to it. So it is definitely not out of the realm to think that there is going to be some sort of turf war, but also potentially trying to avoid each other, meaning a grizzly bear doesn't really go out of its way to get in a battle with, a mountain lion or wolves. Of course, it's not afraid to, but again, same thing. The wolves aren't afraid of the grizzly bear, but they're not really going to necessarily always try to put it themselves into direct correlation to what could occur. So how do you feel about each side here, do you think, I don't know if I've ever asked you this, do you feel that they are going to be some versions physical? I'm talking about the Dogman and Sasquatch here, and some being paranormal and some being extraterrestrial? Or do you feel that the Sasquatch or Dogman, either one, falls into a specific side?
Personally, I'm more of the flesh and blood. I do think they have abilities we don't understand yet, but I lean toward the flesh and blood, but nothing's off the table. I mean, these things aren't even supposed to exist yet, according to science. So for me to draw on a line in the sand doesn't make a lot of sense. You want to get all the data, look at it, and then go from there.
No, and that's a very intelligent way to approach it. And the reason I just asked is I just feel there's so many different versions of encounters where it can range from any of the above. Yet I do fall into line with, if something is a living, breathing entity, such as you and I, a great white shark, a Tyrannosaurus Rex, a Brontosaurus, a saltwater crocodile, it doesn't matter, okay? A massive silverback gorilla, a Kodiak bear, list can go on. Unfortunately, they can all no longer exist if it comes to the proper weaponry, okay? Everything can be disposed of if you are physical. And those are all dominant apex things, okay? No different than a cave bear, all right? Massive, huge being. Yeah, again, if you have the proper weapon. And stated, look at a Tyrannosaurus Rex. If you had grenades and a rocket launcher and high enough power artillery, it doesn't matter how apex the T-Rex is, it's still gonna no longer exist. But if something now is, well, paranormal based or extraterrestrial, meaning like the Battle of LA that was believed to have been extraterrestrial based, they unloaded high power shells, boom, 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 nothing was doing damage. So that's what I mean. I feel like if something was extraterrestrial based or paranormal, then the type of weaponry we have isn't going to work. Yet, if I'm fielding an encounter of a woman from Texas who referred to hitting a massive looking werewolf type baboon, drilled it with her truck, and just sped off because she was terrified, called her friend. They went back and there was a huge, massive blood smear, but animal is nowhere to be found. Okay, so probably tried to self off like any other animal, but that means whatever that was had to have been physical because, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't really see how an extraterrestrial being could be hurt by a car if that battle from LA we were shooting massive tank rounds at whatever this was and it wasn't hurting it, okay? And if something is paranormal, as far as I know, a car wouldn't impact it, correct?
Right. As far as paranormal, that would be my understanding, is that you're not going to do any physical damage to it. It would have to be more on an energy level somehow, vibration, things like that. And as far as you hit on a good point as far as the shells and the possible shielding they have. So maybe it comes down to what weapon you're using against what protection. If you look back in the days when you had a knight riding in on a horse, a bow and arrow is not going to do anything. But if that guy happens to have a 303 in his hands, and that's a whole nother story.
Isn't that so mind-boggling how that works? And that's such a great reference because, I mean, look at Kevlar, for example. Kevlar at its form is almost like silk. It's super, it looks weak, but it's not weak. It can stop a bullet, okay? But then it can't stop something from penetrating through it, meaning a knife or a sword goes right through Kevlar. And obviously certain types of ammunition would go still through a hollow tip or etc. I don't know the most about ammunition, but I just know because, I mean, military people are all wearing Kevlar and body armor, and well, unfortunately, we still know what happens to a lot of them. So it is super interesting in regards to that, like you said, because at the end of the day, it boils down to all the people we just named, all the warriors are all physical beings. So they were obviously able to take damage and give damage back, which brings me into a lot of the Michigan Dogman type encounters that I've heard of really seem to also be physical based, whether it's from the really, really old ones or up to some of the more modern ones. I mean, I'm sure, again, there's some in that area that wouldn't fall into that, but the more infamous ones, like the one you had referred to that happened to your family, that definitely seemed to be something that was physical based. And there's a ton of things in regards to that, do you have any, I guess, what you would say are some of your more favorite type of encounters from Michigan, or ones that you find to be more nightmare fuel?
The Joe Barger sticks out most, just from the fact that as he's talking, that one that he disposed of kept showing its face, and then he brought up the point of, they do run in packs more than likely. So maybe it wasn't the one he saw that he should have been worried about. How much farther down the roadway you got if he hadn't pulled that trigger, where maybe the one on the driver's side that he didn't see got a hold of him. And then there's the ones I'm just reading into, when you get the Bigfoot versus the Dogman, and everybody would think Bigfoot would win. That's not necessarily so. Like you said, hyenas will knock the tar out of something a little bigger than them, and I think that's what you have going here. They talk about a 10-foot where the Dogman, gets knocked down, but he's able to get his feet in between the Bigfoot and the Dogman, gives him a kick, and lacerates that stomach wide open. So, there's casualty there that people just wouldn't think would happen. But then there's also stories of them being friends. So,
No, that's all very valid too, and excellent observations. And I'll give you an example. Before actually I give you that example, I will say, yeah, the Barger story is intriguing. Yet I do believe I would have to say the most nightmare one that I've heard from Michigan by far is your family's encounter with the dog being thrown through the window. Yeah, that's just my opinion. But there, obviously, the Barger one is pretty interesting for sure, but yours is some straight up nightmare fuel. So, but on to what I was going to say is recently I saw that chimpanzees are destroying gorillas and over turf wars, and they use sticks and rocks and all kinds of things. And again, look at a gorilla. Think how much stronger than a chimpanzee a gorilla is. I mean, just look at the mass size, okay? Yet we're not talking about a whole horde of chimpanzees. I've seen 2 or 3 dispose of this gorilla. So, I mean, in theory, yes, like this is just theory here, okay? But a Sasquatch, for example, is, yeah, sure, super strong and big and maybe just as strong as a gorilla, a little bit more stronger, okay? But if it had to take on 3 large cave hyenas or even 3 really large spotted hyenas, as you were stating, sure, as one attacks and he or she's trying to deal with that and dispose of that, you have now 2 more that are ripping into you and causing damage. So I'm not saying that all dogmen are cave hyenas, etc. Yeah, I do have reasons to believe some of those hyena sightings do fall into that category. But that's just, again, an observation of the type of issues it would have. Now, again, same thing, short-faced cave bear. Yeah, I do believe a Sasquatch could hold its own against that, but also that would be a pretty traumatic battle to try to come out on top of if it had to fight a 13-foot short-faced cave bear. And again, now with like a dire wolf, same thing. 2, 3 dire wolves, that would probably give it. I'm just talking about one Sasquatch here. I'm not talking about a
right.
group of them. That would probably give a Sasquatch some issues too. 3 massive dire wolves, because again, you can only defend yourself for so many at a point in time, unless you're not a physical entity. We're talking about if you are physical, like you and I were stating that we tend to believe a lot of these are occurring, and you're going to have issues with that. Now, same thing, Dinopithecus, the giant human-sized baboon that a lot of people have seen, baboon-looking type Dogman and Sasquatch. Again, they travel in packs. So 2 or 3 of those massive baboons the size of you and I that are baboons, they're not humans now. Again, that could probably give one Sasquatch some issues. So I think, as you were saying, yeah, it's a fair observation to realize that it's probably not just going to be a big dominant beat down. If I mean, sure, 1v1 with the Dogman, yeah, but like you were saying, with some of the pack orientated stuff, I just think it's not as simple as people are thinking it is.
No, and if you think about it, all that strength and power is absolutely useless if your Achilles tendon comes out from under you from a bite. Now you're on your back. Now you lost your legs. Now you lost your base for power. So
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And Again, well stated and a great observation. And that's like with anything, because a leopard, straight up apex predator. But yeah, when it was mauled, it lost its attributes that made it an apex predator. When it comes to yours and the Barger case, because we spoke about those, do you have any more that you feel are pretty interesting from the Michigan area, or ones that really cause you to be like a head scratcher?
Just the ones that a couple of years from the Manistee National Forest, we talked about it at one point, where a friend of mine does go Dogman and squatching, and he goes to go out to one of his normal places, and he goes and there's the park officials putting up a great big gate across this 2-track that he goes down. That's normally public access, and all of a sudden, they're quarantining this whole area due to aggressive animals. They wouldn't tell them what kind of animals, but that's kind of unnerving, because then you hear the stories that come out of it, and it wasn't just, some of these people got hurt, but they were just listed off as, I think it was a bear, was what they said. But the fact that they're going to cover you up is what scares me. It's going to be bad enough if you get out of it. The fact that you're going to be visited by certain people, and you're going to be told it was an animal, and you're going to brush this whole thing under the rug.
100%. And that's definitely some straight up nightmare fuel for sure. When it comes to that, it's so interesting because sometimes, like for example, in the Brenda Hamilton case, myself and some others believe that it was actually a large cat, either a mountain lion or a panther, because they used trees, and that would also explain the reason her body was found in the shape it was, and also why there was a lack of footprints, yet it was blamed on wild dogs, which tended to be not really what had occurred. And then you also have myself and Jody Cook and some others that have dove into the aspect of, with the LBL area also being a big, huge game reservoir, that there's a ton of mountain lions and also black panthers in that area too. And a lot of the reports in general, people say their eyes of the dogman look more feline. So I do believe there is some correlations between these attacks and some of the ones that have been listed as quote unquote like a cover up. But the thing is, when something is covered up, it can always be put to two different ways, meaning like with the bow hunter down in the LBL, that was actually, unfortunately, he was shot and, well, lost his life from poachers, and they left his body out there. And Jody and some others were able to really verify that, because the campground where he was found is a whole entire area where there is a ton of accidents of poaching, etc. And where he was found was right off the highway, meaning whoever did this or whoever's could have just dragged the body up there and easily got onto the freeway without being seen. And also the type of predation was just natural from raccoons and things. And his campsite wasn't found destroyed, nor was his bow. But they went with the MO that it was a dogman attack there. Okay. But in actuality, see how it was kind of like a cover up for that. So it's ironic how sometimes the cover up for the potentially real dogman attacks is listed as something as not foreseen, but then other times they use that facade to cover up something else. It's so mind-boggling.
Yeah, and LBL is just a really interesting place. Someplace I want to go at some point, because I had a group of friends get together down there just 2 months ago now, I believe. And, it was a bunch of YouTubers, and they came down and were doing Bigfoot investigations. And a friend of mine said he saw Dogman down there. So I'm still trying to figure out, we're talking back and forth, but our schedules kind of are hit and miss with one another. But I don't know if he just saw the eye shine and assumed it was a dogman because of the way it growled, or if he actually got to see a silhouette and a tail. I want to say he said something about seeing the tail, but until I verify it from him, and that was just a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago. So the activity down there is still off the charts. It's almost like they've been conditioned now when a bunch of people show up that, hey, there's going to be people here. There's going to be food down there. So people start doing calls. They know that there's picnic baskets ready to be picked off.
That's some straight up nightmare fuel, and that would make sense. I mean, I've used this example before. I have a pet squirrel. She likes to go outside and play. Obviously, other squirrels come around too because my squirrel likes to just go bury her nuts outside, even though she has her food in here, and the other squirrels just come and dig it up. Okay, whatever. Well, I've befriended pretty much like 10 to 14 other neighborhood squirrels that come over from all around because they know when she was out there burying her nuts, oh, where did they come from? So now, obviously, when I'm out there just feeding one of the other neighborhood squirrels or something, all the rest come. Crows come in, blue jays. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the blue jays and crows are not even close to as friendly. Most of the neighborhood squirrels come up and grab it right out of my hand. Yet, just more or less, like you said, 'cause it's like a dinner bell for one of them. Oh, wait a second. He or she's over there eating a peanut right now. No, no, no. I'm coming over now. So
Yeah, it's weird what they can condition them to. It's like when people go deer hunting and they talk about they hit it and they're within, 10, 15 minutes of finding the deer, but the deer's gone. I just watched it the other day where the guy shot it. There were three of them, and it must have been a young, aggressive male that was hungry or something because he jumped in between them and the deer and wouldn't back down. And they wound up putting a few bullets in it before it finally decided it wasn't worth it. So it seems like they hear a gunshot now, and that's dinner to them. They know something's been taken down. I
wow.
imagine the same thing could be taken, Dogman. I'm sure the same thing applies to that.
Would make logical sense. Like I said, I mean, when you see like the African predators, same thing. I mean, a leopard makes a lunch break or dinner call, and the hyenas are like, oh, yeah, no, I'm going to come take that, or vice versa. The leopard does it to the hyena or the lions. And yeah, so it would definitely make sense because obviously those animals are picking up on a cue of whatever noise or whatever body language the leopard is making when it gets its dinner so that they know, hey, wait a second, I'm right there. It's no different than the coyotes lurking right around the wolves and such. They know when to get close enough when the wolves have got some food that they can grab and snag off. So it is definitely pretty interesting. And you're right in that area that I like to call Werewolf Square, meaning you got Michigan, you got Ohio, you got Wisconsin, you got the land between the lakes, you got some portions of Pennsylvania and West Virginia. It's pretty much the heart of the Dogman type encounter areas. I mean, they come all across the United States, but yeah, you were definitely in Werewolf Square, my friend.
Oh, that's a pleasant thought to have. Bigfoot, I'm okay with. You just don't hear about it any. I shouldn't say that because if Dogman encounters were all nasty, they wouldn't have gotten out to tell those encounters. They got let go. So to say that dogmen are just rude, mean machines is kind of giving them a bad rap because everybody got to go home.
Yeah, very valid explanation right there. And I would tend to agree. I mean, I've just heard of a recent encounter of somebody that was hunting and they felt that this thing could have got them at any point in time, but yet it just seemed to be observing him. And as he shot his rifle off to the deer, it scared the crap out of this dog being and it just yelped and like ran off. And he turned around and was like, what the heck? But it definitely, he said, was easily in his presence where it could have probably disposed of him at any point in time. And it's like deep blue, that massive great white shark. Again, I still wouldn't do this, but there's plenty of marine biologists that have swam with her without any sort of cage protection, and they're literally right beside her. And I encourage anyone, you can search and see this. Yet it just shows you because she's eaten and she's not hungry, and she's also not feeling as if the people are worth her energy at that point in time, and B, that they're obviously not of any sort of endangerment to her. So yeah, it again just shows you that even apex predators don't necessarily always snag you. There must be so many times in the forest when people don't see mountain lions that are watching them. I mean, don't get me wrong, mountain lions grab people all the time, but I'm just saying for every time someone has that on a camera, yeah, okay, but think how many times people aren't taken or hurt, but they must be being watched by some sort of apex predator, I feel like.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's been so many times when I've been out in the woods and all of a sudden you jump a deer 5 feet away from you. If you'd have been looking the other way, you'd have never seen it. Or, I'll take pictures of the tree line just because I think something's there, but I don't know what. And all of a sudden people are pointing out 3 or 4 faces at me. So I always being watched. Nature's camouflage, you just can't beat it. That's why people, when they say, how thermal is about the only way you're going to outfox the camouflage, or those new parabolic mics, you can at least hear the direction it's coming from. But otherwise, even just trying to find an owl in a tree or deer laying in the brush or a spotted hyena would blend right in there.
Again, very valid and preach, my friend. And same thing, look at a great white shark. I mean, if you were below it trying to look up, well, it's got the white underbelly that's going to match the sun kind of deflecting down into the water. And if you're looking below, it's that dark gray, blackish kind of color that blends in with the ocean. And look at polar bears, how many times nightmare fuel they've snuck up on people because they're pure white and you don't see them in the Arctic. Same thing with foxes out there. And yeah, alligators and crocodiles in the murky, dark green, bright green colored water. Same thing with anacondas, tigers in with the jungle, of course. So, I mean, everything is going to try to, blend in, but can blend in. And I encourage anyone to go check that out. Look at large cats. Look at some of the most massive tigers and such out there. When they push themselves down in the grass, when they're trying to hide and flatten themselves out, you can barely see them. The only reason you see them is because whoever has the camera catches them, luckily, where you see the ear twitch or something. But most likely, if you're that close to that, you're never even going to see it before it snags you. So
I used to keep some venomous snakes at one point before my son was born, and had a copperhead and a Massasauga, which is the only rattlesnake found in Michigan. And the Massasauga had got out. I wound up having to call 4 snake friends because I couldn't see it on the carpet. They were much better at seeing it. I was just lucky and saw it in the wilderness, but I have a brown spotted carpet and that Massasauga just blended right in. I couldn't see it, and obviously I wasn't going to go to bed till I find it, so I called in a few favors, and luckily, and I found it just tucked up in one of the corners. Luckily, it was still in the snake room, but I didn't see it, and I searched that room 3 or 4 times, and I knew what I was looking for.
That is so crazy, Brian, that you're sitting here looking for massively destructive cryptids, and then you're holding extremely venomous snakes that are escaping in your residence and that you're unable to verify. That's extremely terrifying.
Well, here's one that, hopefully I don't get abuse of animals for this because I didn't really abuse it, but I used to have reticulated pythons. They're the longest snake in the world. Anaconda's the largest. Reticulated's the longest. And this one was pushing 17 feet. And I had 2 black cats that every time I got home, they'd run up, jump in my lap and happy to see daddy. One day I came home and only 1 cat came out. And I'm like, what the heck? So I'm looking around and I go upstairs and I had left the snake room open. And I apparently had left the reticulated python's cage unlocked. I'm looking, find the snake in my bed on my electric blanket, and there's a big old bulge in that snake. Oh, man. How am I going to explain that pet snake ate the cat?
Oh, yeah, that's definitely not something that's easily explained away. That is so sad but messed up. And, I mean, just shows you.
Yeah, it's wrong on a lot of levels. You shouldn't have mammals and reptiles in the same house.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of nature how unfortunately that unfolds. But yeah, that is definitely something that could be listed as traumatic to an extent for sure. But well, I do appreciate you again stopping in, and I look forward to getting you on bi-weekly and continuing to dive into this strange phenomenon that everyone's trying to figure out. And I do appreciate it because you are a super busy guy as well. And I think that once things get a little bit more smooth sailing, we'll be able to get a lot of epic stuff out there and a lot of great information, my friend. So thanks again, dude.
Yeah, thank you. And, I'm going to start picking now that I'm on the road to recovery, it feels like, picking some friends' brains who have been out there and see if we can find any current. I think you're on the right track with the hyena thing myself. It looks like it doesn't mean it's a dog, so.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Starfox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm, and I will see you on the next one.